Our guest tonight is KJ Howe, who found success in the corporate world, but a passion for travel, adventure, and the written word brought her back to school, where she earned her master's in writing from Seton Hall University. KJ is a Thriller and Barry Award nominee whose two Kidnap and Ransom thrillers, The Freedom Broker and SKYJACK, featuring her protagonist Thea, have received both critical praise and earned her a legion of fans. Besides her writing career, KJ works with the International Thriller Writers as the Executive Director of ThrillerFest, the organization's annual conference held every summer in New York City. An avid tennis player, cyclist, and swimmer, travel still ranks high on her priority list, and even though home is Toronto, Canada, KJ is often missing in action on one of life's many adventures. The crew is honored to welcome the woman who actually helped bring the four of us together, KJ Howe. Well, we're excited to have Kimberly with us today, and I'm going to jump right into questions. So Kimberly, for years, women were secondary protagonists at best in thriller books, but we're really seeing a swing in the right direction for the past several years, especially, and a lot more female protagonists are driving the narratives, including with your book, of course. So what do you think caused that shift in the industry?
Well, I think it's a reflection of society today. In fact, it's very interesting you bring this question up because I just got back from Dallas in BoucherCon, and you probably know that I'm a member of the Rogue Women Writers. Yep. So there's 9 women who write kind of edgy thrillers, often international, who bonded together to do a blog. And, we were talking about this topic for an hour at BoucherCon, and it was really lovely. There was a packed room. And I think it's just the fact that, women are catching up with certain things. And I think with the Me Too movement and other thrusts in Hollywood, actresses fighting for equal pay, I think has brought women to the forefront. And it's wonderful that they are taking a leading role. And actually, I'm thrilled that a lot of male authors are writing strong female protagonists as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't think it's like an issue about. I just think it's great that women are taking a lead in all areas.
Yeah. So along the same lines. So in your research and your writing, Thea is obviously a hostage negotiator, female hostage negotiator, your protagonist. What do you think a female would bring to the table in negotiations, in maybe even say just real life, that a male might not be able to bring to the table?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, I've talked to many of my experts, and this comes from them more than me. And that is the fact that women often have great capacity for empathy. So when you're talking to a kidnapper and trying to establish a bond, or you're talking to the hostage's family, which is a major component of a kidnap negotiator's job, you want to have a lot of empathy to calm things down. And that brings it to the second point, really de-escalation. I think women are quite good at de-escalation. Robin Bursell, who is a former policewoman and hostage negotiator, was actually joking with me because she said the way I was talking into the microphone, that it was like I was slowly slowing my words down and trying to, make things calmer. And she thought, hey, you'd make an all right hostage negotiator. I'm like, just what I need, a third job. Those are the two major components. I would say empathy and, de-escalation. And don't get me wrong, I think men could be very good at that as well. I just think we get a lot of practice at those two things.
Yeah, I would agree.
So one of Thea's drivers to become a hostage negotiator was the kidnapping of her younger brother, Nikos, when he was a child. And one of your mentors and one of my heroes, David Morrell, once told me, and he's told other people this as well, that fear is the emotion that drives a lot of his writing. And that's kind of the emotion that he says he's writing his best when he's writing from a place of fear. Given the world you've created and the character you've created with Thea, I'm curious if that was part of your calculus as well.
That's an excellent suggestion, in the sense that I firmly believe that emotions are integrated into our fiction. And I've often heard that, people who enjoy science fiction and fantasy books are often captured by wonder. People who love romance adore hope. And people who love mysteries tend to be logical puzzle solvers. And thriller fans tend to be adrenaline junkies. That said, I would say my books center on family and betrayal. So I would say maybe it's not as much as fear as much as hurt, pain, agony of betrayal.
Awesome. That it all hurts inside. But I want to take a step back and talk about when you conducted research for the Freedom Broker. I've heard you mention that you've interviewed former hostages, negotiators, special forces operatives, even, and insurance executives. And it's that last one that I found kind of interesting. So would you mind telling us and the audience what you learned after speaking to insurance executives about when it comes to kidnapping and ransoms?
And you think they just have the most boring jobs ever, right?
Right.
Exactly.
But not the ones I met. So I've gone to conferences, specific kidnap conferences, and there are insurance people there who specialize in kidnap and ransom. Now, it's not every insurance company that has this type of offering, but the ones that do cover it specialize in different types of kidnap and ransom insurance. For example, it can be rolled up in a complete policy, or it can be bought just for a trip, which I find very interesting. So if you're going to plan on doing something a little edgy and you just come to a place for 3 weeks, for research, and you need to be covered, you can also get that. Coverage can be up to $50 million.
Jeez.
So how do you qualify for that though?
Okay. So one of two things happen. First of all, quite often the individual doesn't even know they have kidnap and ransom insurance. Their company, let's say Coca-Cola, puts a bunch of people in Mexico and South America. They'll just do the kidnap and ransom insurance for them. And the reason they don't want them to know a lot about it is because if you knew what you were worth with respect to your, limits, and you were tortured, would you not cough that information up? 3 million. I'm worth 3 million. And so what they do is they make it null and void, the insurance, if the person learns what they are, basically insured for, which I found really interesting. There's so many different facets of this insurance that we don't normally get. If you're going to get it yourself, obviously you're going to know your limits. But there are different other protections that can come into play. And, the bottom line is this, if you are going somewhere dicey, it's incredibly important to have the insurance. It covers everything from your freedom broker or, kidnap negotiator fees, which add up to quite a bit on a daily basis. It covers loss of wages. So when you're not working, you can be covered while you're not being held hostage. It also can cover medical bills and psychological, bills and things like that, that when you come back and you need to reintegrate into society, they'll cover that as well. And also, of course, the ransom itself. But interestingly, the insurance can never give the money for the ransom. They can only reimburse the amount the ransom was paid for.
Ooh.
So you have to come up with that money first. I mean, or the business does. For some reason, I was thinking of Aflac when you were saying all that stuff. The insurance company pay for you lost wages. But so I'm assuming that, like you mentioned, it wasn't like all insurance companies. So maybe not like Allstate or State Farm, large insurance companies here in the United States. I guess you have to specialize.
Many are starting to cover it. It's very high risk, as you can imagine, because if something does happen, it'll go crazy. And be very expensive. But at the same time, it's becoming more prevalent because kidnapping is on the rise across the globe. And so many companies want to cover, their employees while they're, traveling abroad. And it all started in London, at Lloyd's of London. And, what basically they wanted to do was they wanted to share the risk with many different insurance companies. And so that's why they all contributed and took a small risk, and it was like mixed insurance. But nowadays, actual insurance companies will take on policies themselves.
Probably do like a reinsurance with some company in Bermuda or something.
Yeah, unlikely.
Right.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And, the fact that there's so much secrecy. I mean, I had one of my kidnap negotiators told me about his visit to Lloyd's of London and, how they meet in this cubicle that's completely soundproof and they talk. Yeah, it's fascinating. They also do like analysis that we won't have access to ever. And that is, but he's told me some stuff, obviously I can't share it, but, just information from my own knowledge about, for example, let's say a gentleman was taken in Rwanda, a businessman in a certain area of the jungle by a certain group, he could basically tell me what the going rate for that gentleman would be.
Jeez. Like you have a sticker with a price tag on your shirt.
Right?
Yes. So you're right. I mean, if they have that info, if they have that metric, it's happening way too often.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hey, so with all that in mind, talking about some research, how does a writer who decides that they're just going to write about kidnappings, I mean, do you just pick up a phone and say, hey, can you tell me all about how you do this whole kidnapping process? I mean, what are some of the hoops that you have to jump through, or how do you go about actually researching up not only the kidnapping process, but there's a lot of lingering effects after the fact, and I'm sure you've talked to some survivors of some of these processes. How do you go about actually researching this beyond just Google?
Yeah, and it was incredibly necessary because obviously none of us really know a great deal about kidnapping unless we've been immersed in it ourselves.
Yeah.
I read absolutely everything that I could get my hands on about kidnapping, so I would be well informed to a point. And then I realized I need so much more. So if you can believe it, I Googled Kidnap and Ransom Conference. There is one. I know.
There is one? Why do we know about that?
It's crazy.
Yeah, where is it? Vegas?
It changes all the time, but this one happened to be in Miami at the Biltmore Hotel.
Wow.
And so I flew down, and there were 80 people in the conference. Very small, shadowy world. Okay,
Yeah.
like it's not. And the conference organizer said to me, because I was the only person, obviously, that did not really belong.
Yeah.
And she said to me, after the conference, she said, I was incredibly worried that you would be ostracized in a corner. I didn't want to say that to you then, but every time I saw you, you were surrounded by people. So I'm like, okay, it's going to work. But this is, I think, happened. I think the fact I'm not a journalist.
Right.
Okay? So I'm not reporting on their cases. I don't want to know, what's happening in this case or that case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, I think that they understood I was coming at it in a very professional manner, and that I didn't want to glamorize anything, and that I wanted to be as real and gritty as possible. And of course, I took him to the bar.
It works for us.
That's right.
And it's actually funny because, I was talking to Mark Greeny once, and he told me he had a friend who was trying to write about kidnapping, but kept getting the door slammed in his face with, experts. So I feel incredibly lucky. I think just somehow being there, being in person, I slowly built credibility, and it's taken me 6 years, but now I'm very honored to call most of them my friends.
Yeah.
That it's built up to a trust level, and it's one of those things where they share a little bit and they see how you do. And then, but a couple of them have read my books and vetted them for me to make sure that they're accurate.
Ooh,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Nice.
That's really cool. That's invaluable right there as well.
Kidding.
Get the subject matter experts on board, and you did your research and you pulled it off. That's pretty exciting.
I'm kind of fascinated by this whole thing, so this is pretty cool.
Exactly.
If you need to know how to kidnap someone, just let me know.
Well, we got this guy down here.
Don't ever explain that to Alex, please.
No, right? It could get dangerous. But in all
probably.
sincerity, I try and have the deepest respect for these gentlemen and women, I should say too, that, have helped me. And I think that they're really happy about the fact that it's getting out there. One of the main thrusts of the talks I do are quite often travel safety. I try and talk to people about what they can do to stay safe.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Secondary market for your research right there.
So Kimberly, we've talked about your books over the years, and as good as The Freedom Broker was, SKYJACK was better. And the elements you pulled together, you just took it to the next level, which is what you always want to do. You always, the first book's great. You want the second book to be better. You want the third book to be better. What did you think you did to make that improvement? What did you learn from book one, from Freedom Broker, that made SKYJACK that much better?
Well, thank you kindly. I'm really relieved to hear you feel that way. It's always worried. People are always thinking about the sophomore slump, right?
Absolutely.
Book had more time, and then you're under pressure and had to write the second.
Right.
But I guess I'm trying to, first of all, I look at writing as a journey, not a destination. And quoting Aerosmith there. And I just really want to learn how to write better. So I've been very lucky. I worked very closely with Nathaniel Marunas, who is the publisher at Quirkus. And the gentleman is absolutely stunningly brilliant and quite an editor. And I think that my interaction with him just was like a masterclass in writing. And even though I was very lucky, I actually did my master's in creative writing before the Freedom Broker. And, I've taken many retreats, and I've been very fortunate to study with Steve Barry and Karen Slaughter and Lee Child and others, just by basically, instead of taking vacations, I just have done writing retreats instead.
Wow.
So that investment of time is wonderful. I think it's a great way to immerse yourself in the writing. And I also think, you kind of get better at storytelling. When I did my master's, I wrote a story about a female sniper that shall forever remain in a drawer.
We all have that book.
Drawer. But actually, I did go out with it, and got some really positive rejections. It was just a weird blend between a romance novel and a thriller.
Huh.
And I just didn't hit the note right.
Do you see her as a secondary character at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her name's Kenya Lexikova, and she's an elite sniper.
Nice.
And I learned that, and I found this really interesting, in the Battle of Stalingrad, after World War II.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That the Russians were very successful because they had 2,000 female snipers, and only 500 of them survived. But they were absolutely instrumental in beating the Germans.
Yep, I've read some of those.
Right. So I actually based my character on a granddaughter of one of those snipers.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Cool backstory.
Yeah.
So one of the traits of your books, that, again, I think is similar to Mr. Morrell, is that while you're entertaining, you inspire the curiosity to learn more about the fictional subject you're writing about, and you educate along the way. For instance, like I was, like Mike, curious about the subject matter and find out there's, more than 40,000 kidnappings worldwide a year, and that there's millions of dollars that finances terrorism directly from the kidnappings. But one of the other interesting things I think you've mentioned before is that it matters what country you're from as far as what your outlook is. Yeah. And could you kind of talk to that a little bit?
Sure. Yes, exactly. We little do we know our circumstances of our birth could be life altering, right? So, places like Canada, where I'm from, the US and the UK have a very firm policy of not negotiating with terrorists. And they consider, obviously, these kidnapping people terrorists. And the main reason that kidnapping is on the rise, there's actually two reasons. One is that it's become a fundraising mechanism for ISIS and other terrorists because oil is drying up for them. And then otherwise, military and police from failed states have no way of making money and putting food on the table for their families. So they turn to kidnapping as a way of making a living. So backing that up, it's been tricky because many countries, like I said, will refuse to negotiate with them. Believe it or not, in the US, up until a few years ago, it was technically illegal for families of hostages to pay a ransom.
Wow.
Now, nobody was ever prosecuted because can you imagine the media coverage?
Yeah, get ripped.
Yeah, not good. And so, but still it was in place until, another presidential directive came down about that. And so other places like Japan and Italy, people tend to pay like very high amounts, like close to what they're asking for, and very quickly. And usually, if a good kidnap negotiator is on the case, they only have to pay about 10 to 15% of what the initial asking price is. You get to be a real haggler. You go to the bar and you haggle, back and forth and back and forth. And the reason that you do that is because it's incredibly important to be thought of as a hard target. If you're not thought of as a hard target and you don't whine and moan and cry and complain that you're down to your last dollar, which is why some kidnap negotiators often use $311.25, right? Instead of saying, I give you $300. Right. They make it seem like they've squeezed every last cent out of the, options for their finances.
Right.
So, in that case, when they're going to negotiate, it's a very tricky situation, and each country does handle it differently. And that's why if you're taking in a group of hostages, with different nationalities, it can play out to be a very interesting novel.
So in
So
the cases when somebody does pay the ransom, I mean, do they normally get them? I know there's no absolute, but do they normally come back okay?
Yeah, the great news is this. In Kidnap or Ransom, over 90% of people come home safely.
Wow.
Now,
Never
so
guessed that.
Yeah.
there's good news and there's bad news. Right?
Yeah. Here comes the bad news.
That's the good news. And also, there are people that are released without ransom. Sometimes, though, what happens is they will take that first, like what you think of as the ransom, and say, hey, that was a wonderful down payment. You are now paying to keep this person alive. We have money to fund and guard and, give them toothpaste and food, right? So that's why you have to be such a hard target and really say, you squeezed every last cent out of us. Because if you don't, then they will often say, that was a great down payment, let's talk some more.
Mm-hmm.
But they tend to honor the fact that it's a ransom mostly. As you can imagine, they see this as a business.
Mm-hmm.
And you renege time and time again on your customers, which are the families of hostages. No one's going to give you any money.
Yeah, that's true.
What a crazy thing. I mean, it's all seriousness, but it's also a game.
Right.
So it's really strange.
Fascinating game, actually.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts and everything. But let's talk a little bit about Thea. And so we all know the characters we create need flaws or some kind of baggage that hinders the character throughout the story. It makes them human and more relatable to the readers. And it's kind of important. So, but Thea Paris, the protagonist in your series, has a unique issue. She suffers from type 1 diabetes. How did that come about? How did you as her creator come up with that idea for her?
Well, first of all, I was a former medical writer. So that's my background. And I did a lot of, patient education on a different variety of illnesses. And then I said to myself, I wanted to make a character that was different. So I said, first of all, I want to make her alpha female. But it's very tricky when you create an alpha female because you don't want her to be superhuman like a Wonder Woman, right? Unbeatable. I wanted to make her very, very flawed, like you said, and human. And I felt like there was an underrepresentation of people with chronic illness in fiction. I mean, if you think about it, the only ones I can really name are Lincoln Rhyme, from The Bone Collector.
Right.
Jeffrey Deaver, he has quadriplegia, right? And other than that, it's really hard to think of a main character. And I actually had a great talk with David Morrell about this, and he said that they had learned when writing in fiction that you couldn't basically maim or hurt your main character to any point where people wouldn't follow along.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, just like we talked about women earlier, I do think things have changed for people with illness and disability. And I really wanted to show that the fact that there's an enormous amount of chronic illness in our society. And in fiction, the only one you really see commonly is drug and alcohol addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I really want to do something different. And then I started considering the different options. And I realized that 400 million people across the globe have a form of diabetes. Obviously, it's rarer to have type 1 diabetes than type 2. But still, it's becoming rampant with childhood obesity as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, this is good. And then I think, diabetes also has the built-in thriller angle of a ticking time clock. If Thea doesn't get her insulin in time, she's going to be in dire circumstances.
Yeah, she's, in a location where the diet changes, that is a hard impact on people with that affliction.
Yeah, I've actually never read a book where the main character has type 1 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting angle.
Yeah, the irony is I've seen movies where somebody was kidnapped and they had it and they couldn't get their insulin, but this is a great twist on that.
Yeah.
Having the negotiate the protagonist. I love it. It's a great trait.
Yeah, and do you know that 1 in 10 people who are kidnapped have a medical issue that needs medication?
Yeah, I would imagine the older population being kidnapped, especially executive level. Hit your 50s, something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, as we get to know Thea a little bit better, what do we start learning about Kimberly? what do Thea and Kim share in personality traits or experiences? Where do we see the two of them come together?
Well, she's a lot braver than I'll ever be. Unless I've got Jack Carr and, Mark Cameron and a few others backing me up, then I'll be a lot braver. I mean, Thea traveled the world growing up. I did too. My father worked in telecommunications, and I lived in Africa and Puerto Rico and Saudi Arabia and Europe. And so I was a bit of a nomad. And I think that that's probably why I kind of felt like I had to write international thriller, because I even though I'm born in Toronto and I live there now, I'm always gone, and I just have this wanderlust in me.
Right.
So that was for sure one. I did a stint in business and tried to negotiate. I don't know if I was as successful as Thea, but I felt I grew up with two brothers, and my father treated me as one of the boys in a very good way. I learned to motorcycle and scuba dive and do things like that. And it was just a natural thing. It wasn't like, you're a girl, go play with your Barbies kind of thing. Right. It was just like, hey, what do you want to do? And to be honest with you, I think out of the three of us, I probably was the one that enjoyed the adventure the most. And so I think that maybe shows through. You can probably see different scenes with motorcycles and cars and planes. And my dad was a private pilot who enjoyed doing aerobatics. So he would take me up in the plane, and there's these competitions where you take a roll of toilet paper and you throw it out the window, and another plane or two is doing this at the same time. And then you try and see who wins by who cuts the most cuts in the toilet paper. So you can imagine what that's like,
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah. That's kind of my background.
Oh, my gosh.
So that's why I love, drama and adrenaline activities. I like zip lining, and I've been diving with great whites in the cage diving and things like that.
Daredevil.
I don't want to say like too much really. Like I'm very cautious and careful. I don't think I'm too high risk, but I do enjoy that kind of thing. I really do.
Yeah, you and me both.
That's the great white diving is number one on my bucket list. Actually,
it was amazing.
I'm a bit of a sharkophobe, but I want to do that.
Well, Sean's mentioned a few times David Morrell, just a couple times, and anyone that looks on our social media accounts, the four of us, will see that we're pretty much David Morrell super fans. Mm-hmm. I've got 2 copies now of First Blood that are signed by him, and they sit on my treasured shelf. So we know that David basically has become a mentor towards you, and you actually mentioned that in the acknowledgments. What is the greatest piece of advice as a writer that David has provided you?
That's a really good question. Just to give you a bit of background, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
When I was traveling so much as a kid, and I was always a new kid, it was really hard. You can imagine changing schools midway through the year all the time. And so I lost myself in books. Books were my constant, my friend. And when I read David Morrell's Brotherhood of the Rose and Fraternity of the Stone, his spy thrillers, I was absolutely captivated. And I said to myself, this is crazy. If I could ever write something that would take someone else out of their world and, away from their struggles like David has for me, it would be a dream come true. Yeah. And so it was just one of those things where, like you said, iconic. I just thought, wow. So fast forward, time went on, I went and did a business degree. Then I decided this is it. I really need to buckle down and study writing if that's what I really want. So I did my master's in creative writing. And if you can believe it, like if synchronicity, whatever, guess who came as the guest speaker to the school?
Wow. Nice.
That's awesome.
Morrell.
Wow.
It's fate.
That is fate. Absolutely. That's about what I was going to say.
Fate.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. So then, and I don't know if you guys know this, but David is actually Canadian.
Yep.
I did.
Yeah. So, it was just kind of that also connection. So we had a wonderful talk when he came to the school. And he was like, wow, what's a nice Canadian girl like you writing about a female sniper? And I think he was sort of surprised. And anyway, so then I went to volunteer at ThrillerFest, of course, because at the beginning, I had nothing to do with ThrillerFest. I just showed up as a volunteer and an aspiring author. And during that time, there was a request. We need a few feature articles done on different authors, and one of the authors was David Moreau. So I stuck my hand up as high as I possibly could. Lucky, I got it. And then I did a really in-depth interview of different people about David, including himself. And when he read it, he said to me, he said, in 40 plus years, of having features written, no one's ever done such an in-depth job. Is it okay if I use it on my website? I'm like, no.
No, please, please don't.
Right? And then I said, of course, yeah. I mean, I'm so honored. It's ridiculous. It's still on his website today. If you look in his website for literary high flyer, you'll see it.
Oh, now I got to look.
Yeah. And then, so he said, I really appreciate your hard work. I want to give something back to you. And he said, I would mentor you. And from there, we kept having breakfasts every time we were in the same place at conference, and sharing things. And he became not only a writing mentor, but a life mentor. And he would push me to go deeper and to explore things in my past. And you know how he is, right? He just does a deep dive, and I love it.
Yeah.
And anyway, so, and then now back to, where I am and dedicating SKYJACK to him. So, thanking him for everything he's done. I just had breakfast with him last week, in Dallas, and had a great time. And I think the most important thing he said was to just try to be a first-rate version of yourself rather than a second-rate version of someone else.
Right.
The thing he sees most out there is people trying to become the next Brad Thor or, the next Vince Flynn or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we all come to writing with such an interesting background, and we can only tell the story that we are meant to tell because we've had these experiences. And so don't try and copy anyone, just be yourself. And if people don't like it, it's okay. You just have to keep chipping away, but you have to find your own unique voice and somehow do something that feels like that it resonates with you.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Great,
It's
great.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because when you're writing query letters, when you're trying to get an agent, usually you have a line in there saying what your story or what your voice sounds like compared to other authors. So, it's a Brad Thor, Vince Flynn. And I always felt uncomfortable doing that. One, because I didn't think I could, those are big names. And then two, it really, I don't think my writing would sound like that.
Yeah.
So do you think it's difficult for women thriller writers to break into the genre? And was it a conscious decision for you to use your initials as opposed to Kimberly?
Yes. So it is difficult. There is a bit of a pushback. I think when it comes to psychological thrillers, like domestic thrillers, women actually are dominating that. I mean, there are a lot of men actually writing with initials because they're doing a great job on the books, but realizing that, and 65% of readers are women.
Women. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I do feel that in the style of writing I'm doing, action thriller type, novels, I definitely feel like someone like Gail Linds was a real trailblazer. But I'd love for you guys to tell me some names of any other female authors who are doing this type of book, this more action adventure, instead of the kind of domestic, internal thriller, right? There aren't a lot out there. So
Right.
No, there's not.
Yes, it definitely. I mean, I've had Steve Barry tell me that I'm swimming upstream. I get it, but sometimes you can't deny who you are or what you love, and you need to write. I had more than one person advise me to use initials, given the type of book I write. I'm very lucky that I have male and female readers, and I'm grateful for that. But I do feel it's still a bit of a struggle because there are gentlemen who, would see Kimberly and not even look at it, but see we fooled them, we just put KJ. And by the time they're hooked on the inside front cover and they don't go to the back of my
Right.
they're into the book and they're like, that's not bad.
What does KJ look like? Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it'd be bizarre though if it's almost 2020 that we still have to think and talk about stuff like that, because it in so many facets, in so many parts of our lives, not just in writing, there is that. I mean, my wife is in law enforcement, and there is a double standard there. and it's just difficult.
Mhm. And you know what's really interesting? I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but a lot of people have said that, editors are gun shy, haha, forget the pun, but,
Yeah.
about taking something completely different. Because if they, if there's a huge need for, domestic suspense, and it seems to be, I thought it possible that it might kind of, burn out, but it's not. It's still going very strong. And there's this, craving for it. So I think it's really hard for editors in a very fragile environment and industry with so much change, right? And so much amalgamation and so much dynamic, Amazon coming in things, all these different things. They're always worried, about their jobs and about make the right decisions when they buy things.
Right.
And so I think taking risks on certain things that seem a little edgy or uncertain, it's hard.
Well, it might be a generational thing too, right? I mean, you've got the older generation running things and everybody's looking towards them. So maybe in a few more years and the next generation takes over.
It's hard to say. I just think I'm just so grateful that someone did take a chance. That's all. But these are the things I've heard, and definitely my agent and several other people really strongly recommended the whole initials thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. So if you could take your author hat off for just a second and put on your executive director hat.
Ooh, yeah.
All right. I'm ready.
So you run one of the biggest writing events in the country, if not the biggest. How do you balance that? Because I've been once, Eric's been 3 times. You see enough of how much you're running around with like a chicken with your head cut off, making sure everything's all right, and yet still finding time to introduce yourself to first timers like us. How do you balance that during the course of the year with your writing?
Well, to be honest with you, it's quite hard. I think part of it is that, it's completely different sides of the brain, right? My creative side is one side and my organizational managerial type, brain is on the other side. There's benefits to it because it's refreshing, right? To take off the creative, side and just do administration sometimes. It's very lovely. Because creative, I think, is a lot more draining, right? We're really thinking hard, we're creating, but balancing it is tough. I work a lot of hours, and I feel that it's hard now too when you're out like also promoting. I think I would honestly say there's sort of 3 jobs going on right now. ThrillerFest, which is just fantastic because I meet the nicest people like you guys, right? And also it's so stimulating because I'm always meeting like ATF people and FBI people that are going to come talk at the conference. It's a steady influx of creativity and positivity. At the same time, there's a chunk of time in every day it takes out with emails and organization things. So I think the best way for me to handle it is to know when I'm best to write, and that is first thing in the morning, and to block out everything else and just write and then go on with my day. But promoting, as you guys know, has become a big part of being an author. It used to be.
No kidding.
Oh yeah.
And I've been on the road now, quite a bit. I was, in London, and I had the great pleasure of interviewing David Baldacci there at Capital Crime, which is just a fantastic,
Yeah.
We're going next year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Wonderful. And then, I went to Atlanta, where I was teaching for the Atlanta Writers Conference. Then I went to BusherCon in Dallas. And, you have to learn to write on the fly. But it's hard. I definitely think it's tough to but is it any more difficult than people who have full-time jobs like you guys who are also writing? No. So you just have to sit that butt in the chair and make it happen and be grateful that we have more than one job.
Right.
It's all about time management.
Yeah. What's important to you?
Well, see, I don't have the organizational side of my brain. I only have the creative side. So I struggle with everyday life.
We put him in charge of very little.
Well, what's really funny is that it is interesting that, when it comes to authors, like, quite often we really do focus on the creative side, right? Like, I would say that most people who are authors have more of that side than the organizational side, which is a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, agree. Staying on the ThrillerFest topic, can't say enough good things about it, and I think you probably hear that from a lot of people. It's really how the 4 of us physically met the first time was just this summer, which was pretty amazing experience. You're you know, I've seen you all these 3 years I've gone, and you're everywhere at once, and you do an amazing job. What is for you the most enjoyable part of that week? And then on the flip side of the back end, you can answer either direction. Which one first? What's the most stressful part of that week for you?
Well, the best part is when a Saturday night, there's nobody happier in that banquet than me. Nobody.
It's gonna be almost over.
I'm kidding, but not really. But you know, it's sort of like this. It's, you know what it's like? It's like writing a novel, and ThrillerFest itself is the climax.
Right.
And all year long, you slowly build. You get a hook in the beginning because you have all these great new guests that you're going to have spotlight guests, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to make it through the muddle, you know, of the middle of the book, or you know, trying to get all the ducks in a row. Organization. People are always asking tons of questions. Making sure that everyone's taken care of. Everyone has books. Everyone's on a panel. You know, everything from even dietary issues at meals. You know, you have to take into consideration. The details are immense. I'm extremely lucky to have the phenomenal team that I do, you know, on site. I literally can't imagine when I first started this job, there was only 3 of us doing it. And now I have a team of 15.
That's insane.
I know. I literally don't know how we did it, but we just.
What year was that when you first started?
I guess I'm like around 10 years now. I'd have.
10,
wow.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Liz did it for, you know, a couple of years, and then I trained under her for a year, and then took it over, and the rest is history. But I think the most spectacular part of ThrillerFest is the fact that there's no green room, and every single person, even if it's like you're a superstar, you're in the cocktail parties, you're in the halls. I don't think there's anything quite like it out there because of that. There's no place for those VIPs to hide.
Right.
And, you know, but in all sincerity, that's what makes it so special, because it's a little bit more of a writer's conference than a fan conference, which I like, because we're all there getting professional development.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best part is truly seeing success stories. Like every time I see, you know, someone come as a complete new person and then work towards becoming, you know, signing with an agent, that's a big milestone.
Yeah.
And then becoming a debut author.
Yep.
You know, so that's the best part for me. The very, very best. Like seeing magic happen. That's what, I guess, the way I can say it. Seeing magic. And it happens all the time. Because we're putting the right people together in rooms, right?
Right.
And that's, like you guys, magic. This is why I'm here tonight.
Yeah, it's totally true.
And the most stressful, wow. I think it's just worrying that something will go wrong badly for someone, and knowing how devastating that could be for them. That's, I think, you know, like, I just feel like if something went wrong for someone, I'd feel really, really badly, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's a tough industry, as we all know. And, you know, we have to defy the odds to be successful. And you know that 2/3 of the debut class never write another book.
Yep. I got that lecture right off the bat.
Very sure. But yeah, but I guess, but the thing is that what I can tell you, everyone out there who wants to be an author, is that I would say it's perseverance that is 90% of it. If you have 10% talent and you're not willing to let go, you will be successful.
That's the most common piece of advice, because I've come 3 years and I've been fortunate to meet just huge name authors, and it's amazing. But the most consistent piece of advice I've gotten over the years is never quit. Never quit. And
you got to be stubborn.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's for sure. So,
and you have to love to write. I mean, you have to love to write. You have to have stories you want to tell.
Right.
I think that's at the heart of it. That's you can't want to be a writer. You got to want to write.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if anyone says that, like, I always say to people, like, honestly, if you're not burning to do this, it's sort of like having children, right? If you're not burning to have a child and you're willing to stay up late nights and do everything you need to do, I would just say, you know, do something else, right? Because it's so hard that unless you have that passion and that love, it's probably easy. You'll have an easier life if you do something else.
Sure.
I worked with an editor earlier this year, and the
Yeah.
first question he asked me was, if you knew The Body Man is not going to get published and it's not going to make it, would you write another book? And I didn't have to think. I said, of course. I've already started actually another one. And so he's like, okay, that's the answer I want. He said, I'm not interested in, I don't think he wanted to work with someone that's just like, this is it. If this doesn't make it, I'm done. So.
Yeah, like I said to you guys earlier, I actually wrote a romantic suspense, full-length, 100,000-word novel that called False Dawn that will never see the light of day. I wrote the beginnings of a couple other books. I wrote my sniper novel, and then finally hit my stride with the Freedom Broker. So
Nice.
years of hard work, and Steve Perry said I was the poster child for the fact that someone can learn craft, and I'm like, thanks, Steve.
Sort of.
Sort of. Just how bad was I? No, I'm just teasing. I was bad. And like, listen, I was a medical writer, so I knew how to write. Do you know what I mean? But there's a big difference between journalistic style writing and, dramatizing action in fiction.
Nah, it's completely different.
Oh my gosh, I could totally talk about that too, because I spent coming up on 20 years in law enforcement, and I did lots of creative writing when I was in school. But when you get into law enforcement, you write a particular way, your investigative reports, and you do that for long enough. The wires in your head go a certain direction, and you have to undo all that and get into the creative side, the fiction, writing fiction. And that was actually a lot of work in doing that and learning.
Even within the creative field, I've written creatively, but I've written mostly screenplays, and it's been a completely different experience writing this novel. I mean, it's way more enjoyable for me and way more rewarding, but it's absolutely night and day. I mean, the plotting is about the only thing and the dialogue, but everything else is, everything I was not allowed to do in a screenplay, I have to do in a novel. So
Yeah, it must be a really big change. And I felt like my journalistic voice kept jumping in there, like really stiff, that really stiff. And the only way you can do it is to sit down and like throw caution to the wind and just let yourself be crazy in that character's voice. Just be like, and go almost to extremes, because you can always dial it back later, right, when you edit. But just be in that voice instead of being so clinical.
Well, let's ask you this. Besides the four of us, which is obvious.
Obviously.
Whatever it is, I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
See, there it is.
Yeah, and we knew you would.
All right, so now wait. Ask you a different question. Hurry up.
What? Yeah.
No, sorry.
All right. Who's the big fish you still want to land for ThrillerFest that you haven't quite gotten a hold of just yet?
Oh, wow. Stephen King.
Ooh, yeah.
Only person I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that would be pretty fantastic. I mean, there's so many though. Frederick Forsyth as well.
Oof, nice.
I just read his autobiography called The Outsider. It's so good. So good.
Wow.
Had one.
Well, I guess it would just be us for the 2021, and then she can move on to those guys after that. So.
I agree. We have to move aside. King can wait.
Yeah, we'll clear a path for him.
Okay.
Steven might feel so bad. She used them as I better save the
I'm out.
Save the fest.
Fix everything.
Make sure you tag him, and we can all beg.
Oh yeah, that's not below us.
Well, Kimberly, we are going to jump into what we call the lightning round.
Oh, this is the fun part.
This is the fun. This is where you can let your hair down and you don't even have to think about we actually encourage you not to think about your answers.
Yeah.
Oh, good heavens. Okay.
Conscious
caution
thought.
to the wind.
First thing that comes to mind, even if it's a bad word, whatever. We can edit. We don't have to edit actually. So
this is not R-rated, or it is.
It could be.
It has been.
But you're a Canadian,
bad
so we're
words
not
said,
expecting it.
We won't
depends
say
on the
who said
guest.
them, but you have to watch those tapes. But so we're all each going to ask you questions, about 5 questions, and just first answer that comes to mind. And I'm going to start it off. So in a movie adaptation, Thea should be played by this actress. If you have your choice.
Oh yeah, I totally see that. You've thought about this, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dreamed about it.
Yeah.
So the next item on your bucket list is...
Oh, she's thinking too much.
Oh, I got it. Sorry, I apologize. I thought you were going to continue. The next, but wow. I'd love to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Go to Africa. There you
Nice.
I lived in
Yeah.
Africa, in Kenya for 3 years. And yeah, I would love to do that. I think I have to say that once you've been to Africa, it's like in your blood. It's like part of your home.
go.
So yeah.
I've heard that. Yeah. Cool. If we could provide for you a time machine and you could go back in time, what author who is no longer with us would you like to spend a day with?
Nelson Mandela. And he's an
Oh.
author because he wrote The Long Road Home.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice.
We know you like to travel and know where you live and know some of the places you've gone. So are you a mountains or a beach person?
That's so easy. Beach.
Beach.
There isn't even a competition.
We kind of threw Simon for a loop on that
Yeah,
one.
Simon got us.
Figured
I
Simon
know.
would say
Screwed up
beach,
on
and
that.
He said
Yes.
mountains because
He
he just
said
came back from
mountains.
Switzerland.
That's okay. I'll take his place in the Bahamas.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, no
kidding.
kidding. Oh,
You
those
will.
pictures.
Like-
They
like-
kill me.
Like I was just in Banff, so I had to have a millisecond of thought because it was so spectacularly beautiful there.
Yeah.
But I am convinced that at birth I was switched with a baby from the Caribbean, and I've been trying to find my way home my whole life.
And Banff is the most beautiful. I live in Colorado, and Banff is the most beautiful place I've ever been to on this planet. It
It's
is that
insane.
stunning. Yeah, it's crazy.
I know you're an adrenaline person, like some kind of exciting things. So we give you a choice: skydiving or ziplining. Right now,
Oh, ziplining.
ziplining. Okay,
Hmm.
you have skydived before, right? I think I
I've done it,
recall.
and I just love that, like the fact that you can, without the hassle of making sure equipment is safe, really, you know, I mean, because it's a little bit different, do you know what I mean? Like ziplining than skydiving. I think the consequences are left for the reward.
Very cool. Okay, so my
Potential
questions are
conflict.
technically done, but as a bonus, when in the body man has an apprentice. Can I be your apprentice?
Of course.
And it has to die in a grisly manner.
Yes, that's fine. Sure.
Hey, listen, I don't know if you guys know a guy named Michael Dillman, but he is a retired banker, and he walks around with this card that says "Retired Banker, Active Fatality." Okay, and he begs authors to kill him in their books.
Oh man,
I have
would
heard of him.
Right?
Probably from
I was
you.
his 25th anniversary kill, and I promised he's got this huge handlebar mustache, so I promised I'd kill him using his mustache in Skyjack. You probably recognize,
like a garrote.
right?
That's so
That's
funny.
hilarious.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
Sean, you're up.
Okay. My first question: the most realistic kidnapping ransom movie you've ever seen?
Proof of Life. One of
Proof
my
of Life.
experts actually worked as a consultant on that movie.
Wow.
And and he was teaching Russell Crowe, you know, how to move because he's former SAS in the helicopter scenes and such. And it's actually a very, very authentic movie.
Oh, good, because I loved that movie. I watched
I
it
like that
time and
movie too.
again.
Yeah.
What
And
the,
sorry, I got to tell you this part. So you know that at the time, Russell Crowe and Meg Ryan were having an affair,
Mm-hmm.
and they had
yeah.
sex scenes in the movies, and they pulled them out because they broke up.
Oh man. That's
How
brutal.
about that hot little tidbit?
Ouch.
first world problems. Okay. You're very well traveled, but is there a city you haven't visited that you would really like to visit?
Rio de Janeiro.
Rio de Janeiro.
Ooh.
I'd like to go there with security, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Mardi Gras.
Friends who can come with me for sure.
The non-human thing that terrifies you the most.
Ooh. Non-human thing, like monsters sort of thing.
Well, like just not a kidnapper, not a
Technology.
terrorist, but
Bugs.
Wow, yeah, I'm not like Indiana Jones. I'm okay with snakes. Let me.
How about the Boston Dynamic or whatever that Android
Oh yeah, that robot that's walking around now.
thing? Those flips.
They're kicking it and everything.
Scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's really good. Actually, you know, I would think that in some ways, science and what can be done with genes.
Yep.
I think
Oh,
that
yeah.
that could be very interesting. And I am a medical writer, so that's right up my alley. So that's what I would
Sure.
say. And
Okay.
thank you
Check
for-
out my next book coming out.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Thank you.
You guys are right up. You're talking
No,
about my next
not
book.
you, Mike. Not you,
Be
Mike.
quiet,
Yes.
Mike.
No, I want to hear more from Mike. Forget about me.
I don't
Are
know.
you going to write about genealogy or
It's already with the editor.
Good. Well, all right. I can't wait to read it. Thank you.
Okay, my fourth question. Who among the crew is most likely to get kidnapped and why?
Oh, wow.
Everybody's-
Who was
We
missing?
got him.
Chris just left.
I
Oh,
got it.
he's no longer there.
Gosh, I think Eric. And the reason, I know it's because he, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Eric is always posting where he is, and I'm telling you, like seriously, this is my kidnap negotiators say. Social media is the biggest stalking mechanism that kidnappers use today. They can sit also in their comfortable Barca lounger and use Google Earth to track people. It used to be, they stalk outside your house, watch your patterns, things like that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you don't need to. And
don't have to.
social media is the biggest way to track someone. And Eric is constantly posting all these gorgeous pics of where he is. So I'm going to come get him.
Yeah.
When
That's
I make
awesome.
those millions, I gotta.
I
get off
can't
social
even. I
media.
can't even say what I want to say right now.
Yeah, because he knows all about this.
Anyway, next question.
So this last
thank
one
you.
might require at least 3 seconds of thought.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Historical figure that would make the best hostage negotiator.
Gandhi.
There you go. He de-escalate, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mother
Totally
Teresa.
de-escalate.
Loving and very negotiating, and we must find a way out of this. So yes, that's
Pretty
what I
cool.
would say, Gandhi.
Nice.
All right, my turn.
Okay. This is
So,
great.
Kimberly, you're kidnapped, but your kidnappers are allowing you to make one phone call.
Okay.
Who are you calling?
Oh my gosh, my buddy Frank. Actually, did you hear that bang? I apologize in the background. He's just texting me right now. I think he's actually surveilling us. I'm not kidding. It's him. He's stop, Frank.
He's very persistent.
That ding
Frank's
meant
very
yes, I am.
So this guy, he's absolutely brilliant. He goes by Paco. He's fluent in Spanish. He is just such a genius when it comes to kidnapping. He would be the one I trust with my life.
Nice.
All right. So now your house is on fire.
Mhm.
You have to leave, and you have time to grab one thing. What is it?
Wow. Passport. Leaving town.
Oh, good idea.
Not grabbing the husband, just the passport.
Oh, he's that curling. Come
I
on.
did thing, not person.
He's gone.
No, I know. The
I
way
don't
I
have
phrased
any
it.
pets, so I'm not cruel. I just want to qualify that.
No. I meant inanimate, and something
Yeah.
that's not alive.
Sure.
So go ahead.
It's such a hassle to get anything renewed these days, right?
Right.
You probably just grab something like that. Your purser,
Yeah.
like to do that. And pictures nowadays, special pictures are all digital, so
Mhm.
that's not
True.
something, right?
Yeah.
I tell my wife you have to grab my portable hard drive. Everything else
It's
doesn't.
got all the crew review shows on it. We got to keep
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, KJ, if you can make a rule for one day that everyone had to follow,
Okay.
what is it?
Be kind.
Oh, I can't do that. I can't.
It's a stretch. It's a stretch, but
Mike gets executed. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
And,
I'm off the island.
actually, I got. Can I qualify that, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Be kind to yourself. It's so hard for us all to do.
Right.
That's very true.
Always difficult with ourselves and challenging. We make mistakes all the time. We say things we don't mean, or come out wrong. And I would just say, be kind to yourself and others.
Next question. If animals could talk, which would be the rudest?
Monkeys.
Oh my gosh, that's what I said.
That's exactly what he said.
They throw feces.
We do too, but we're not.
I actually wrote down in my notes. I said howler monkey. I think that would be the rudest.
Exactly. I'm a monkey fanatic. Like I love going to zoos and traveling to Africa and seeing all sorts of different primates. Yes.
And so my last question is, let's say you own a parrot and it repeats the one word that you say the most. What is that one word?
Alexa.
There you go.
I listen to great music on Alexa.
Oh my gosh, Alexa just talkk.
Yeah, it's talking back and forth. All right. While cycling, Have you ever had anything thrown at you from a moving vehicle?
Well, I'm an avid cycler actually, yep. And it's scary because I had this one guy. I wouldn't say as much thrown at me as almost hitting me on purpose to scare me. He tried to hit me with his rear view, like his side mirror.
I've had two collisions with rear view.
So like swerve into you on purpose?
Yep, absolutely. They're clipping 100%.
You. I was on a very quiet country road, which is a lot safer. And he was just some jerk who thought it would be funny if he came as close as he could.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, I've had an F-150. I took one off with my shoulder one time. Same exact situation. 2 lanes, they had plenty of room.
Yeah.
All right. A wealthy benefactor grants you a free trip, but you can only choose one. And here are the options. Diving in the Great Barrier Reef or skydiving in Dubai.
Oh, diving.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the whole Caribbean baby thing. I am an absolute water person. I was a lifeguard, a swimming instructor. I went to the Canadian National Lifeguard Championships.
Wow.
And yeah, so I am a water girl, and I have been just immersed like a little fish all my life.
All right. If you were forced to move 2020 ThrillerFest to somewhere else in the world, where would we all be buying our plane tickets to?
Wow. Somewhere warm for sure.
Caribbean.
Miami.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Maldives.
Maldives?
Maldives? That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I think a lot of good work could happen in the Maldives. Yeah.
Probably be fewer people there, but
I'm okay with that too.
Yeah. Job's a little bit
easier.
Oh. All right. You secured to a chair the notorious kidnapper Eric Bishop.
Okay.
What is your preferred method of extracting the location of his latest victim?
I'll tell him I'll publish the body man.
I'll tell you whatever you want about all 4 of those guys.
She knows exactly how to get to him.
That
would be the fastest yes ever, man.
Exactly. I mean, I really want to know where they are.
Twisting his arm.
All right. And we always ask this of our wonderful neighbors to the north. The last question.
Very important. Very important.
And the answer is key here. Mm-hmm. What is the greatest Canadian rock band of all time?
Wow. Oh, gosh. It does have to be a band or a singer, or when you
either one.
Performers.
I love performers. Oh, no, I'm changing my mind. Leonard Cohen.
Leonard Cohen.
There we
go.
Don't
Leonard
know.
Cohen. She went real See, that just shows how cerebral she is compared to our typical guests.
This is a running gag, and you will be filled in after the fact.
Okay, can't wait. But did you say you didn't know Leonard Cohen, or
no?
Who said that?
No, I know, guys. I was in a band for.
Well, I know. That's why I was going to say you would only say that as a joke.
Yeah.
All right. He's just profound, and I love his music so much.
Kimberly, you survived.
You survived.
You survived it.
You guys are so nice. It's an absolute pleasure. Mark Greeny gave me the heads up, about you guys, because when I saw him just last week in Dallas, he goes, "It was so much fun. I stayed on forever." And it's just like, it's just like getting together with friends. And thank you for making me feel so welcome.
No, we couldn't wait to have you on for sure.
Exactly. We've been looking forward to this for a while, so we're glad it's here. We're sad it's over, but thank you for being a wonderful guest. And if we don't see you in the next few months, we will see you in July in New York City or, the South Pacific.
The Maldives. Yeah.
The Maldives.
I like that. Are you guys drinking scotch? How come I wasn't invited?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Okay.
We toast everything.
And we're going to toast to you.
Absolutely.
Here's to the Caribbean, me finding my way home.
We can toast to that.
And,
Thank you.
Salute.
And do me a favor, guys. Anything I can do to help you out, drop me a line, okay?
Beautiful. That sounds wonderful.
We're here to help each other in this community, and I'm so thrilled you found each other at the conference. And
oh my gosh, it was the weirdest thing.
The weirdest thing. We've known each other forever.
It's almost like we've been friends since college.
Yeah.
We were asked 3 times. I think the Friday night we had that cocktail hour with David Brown and Tom Colgan, and we were asked 3 times by 3 different people if we went to college together.
Isn't that
we just met Thursday.
Yeah.
That's really special. And I love that fake cigar. That was like the highlight of the conference for me.
And then the picture back there of all.
Yeah. I got the picture of my right shoulder right here.
It was so much fun, seriously, and
Well,
you guys are great.
Listen, I had a great time there. I was nervous about what to expect. But I walked in, I hooked up with Eric, met R.L. Stein like 2 seconds later. I'm like, how bizarre is this? And then everybody was so extremely friendly. It threw me for a loop. I really wasn't expecting that. And I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And as a debut author, for me, it was surreal because, again, I didn't know what to expect and I hadn't met these fine gentlemen here. But being welcomed so strongly by the organization itself so quickly and really being pulled into that environment in those arms was really it was a surprise, but it was also very profound and making me feel welcome into this big community that I've been forever wanting to be a part of. So yeah, thank you very much. That it was really the highlight of my year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just feel like we found our tribe because we all think the strangest things, little voices in our heads and crime and, bloody madness. And it's just a good thing to find each other,
Yeah.
And then we I agree completely. And, thank you again. And I can't wait to, see all you guys and your career soar.
All right.
Thank you.
Here's to you, Kim.
Yeah. Here's right back to you with my water.
Hey, whatever works.
That's okay.
It's vodka.
It works.
Yeah.
All right. Take care and drop me a line anytime. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
See ya. Bye.
Take care now.
Thanks for watching another great episode of the Crew Reviews podcast. I want to thank our guest tonight, KJ Howe, whose novels The Freedom Broker and SKYJACK are must-reads. Go out and get a copy of both books. And if you enjoyed the show, do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button, and before you go, leave a comment. We're going to pick someone who leaves comments and send them a signed copy of SKYJACK, our latest book. Have a great night, everyone, and we can't wait to see you on our next Crew Review podcast. Gentlemen, well done.
Cheers, boys.
Thank you. Tell us the real stuff now. Come on.
Yeah, come on. Tell us all the juicy
Come
stuff.
on.
No, and we had been
On that.
corresponding online for a good several months too.
Well,
so
yeah,
it's not
absolutely. No, they're absolutely. It wasn't a cold turkey
Glad to hear that.
meat or whatever, but it was just that
You
connection
swipe
that you
right.
talked with someone.
Like, right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I can't help it.
We're all in.
That is-
boxes, so.
No, welcome to the show. That's pretty
There
much
was a
the-
shirt that he was
that's how we
wearing.
talk to each other the whole time.
You tell that to anyone else, and they'd be like, "You need to probably go talk to someone." But yeah, that's
but-
the way our
but
brains
you-
work.
but
It's
you
full
do,
of
Eric.
stories.
You still do.
He
And I
still
probably
does.
should talk to someone too. but-
You still do.
Eric, it's for the brand, man. You're supposed to give our people, you're supposed to give our followers what they want, and they
They're-
wanted
they're-
Eric Bishop bloopers.
They're coming to get to know you as the master. Sean, you were trying not to laugh. What was that about?
You just had a little moment in there.
What was I doing?
You said a little moment in there, a little mini stroke, but you recovered well.
You did good. He's becoming a pro. I was trying to count you down to 3, 2, 1, and you were
I was laughing
What
because
was
you went
going
on
on in
two.
my brain most
You
of the
got
time.
two.
I was
you
laughing
went.
because I thought you were going to go over the edge.
and I was like, wait a minute, that sounds like a Monty Python skit.
Do we go on one?
I'm not giving you any bloopers tonight.
1,
so
2,
shut up.
5. 3, sir. 3.
I see myself followed by Mike and CA and Sean, but no Eric.
No, Eric. Okay. We see Eric.
Is that better?
Um, Interesting.
It's a service we offer our guests.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that was your request earlier, right?
See what I have to deal with? See why I want the millions so I can quit?
We love you, Eric.
This free job?
We have you locked in forever.